definitely worth. Hello there. It has been a little while. I thought it was a good time to get back on here and show you what I'm up to, because the bushes right now are absolutely bursting with berries and nuts and tasty things. So yeah, it's a good time to do a vlog. It's not the ideal temperature though, mind, because it's about 28 degrees out in the countryside, so I'm like getting under any bit of shade that I can, because I'm literally dripping, just standing still. But yeah, look, all these bushes along here are full of elderberries, and annoyingly I can't quite reach them unless I wade into the brambles and the nettles, but I have got some that are more within reach, so we can go and find those. This elder tree is probably my favourite one because it's in direct sunlight, so all the berries come out big and juicy, but a lot of them are out of reach. I'll get these, ouch! I'll get these crappy ones down just to show those of you who aren't sure, ow, there's stinging nettles everywhere, what they look like. As you can see, the berries are a very dark purple when they're ripe, and you can even smell them like from a distance from the bushes, a bit like a nice grapey wine kind of smell at this point, because some of them are going a bit off. So yeah, this isn't the finest example, but just so you can see the shape. And this is what the leaves look like. So as you can see, there are opposite sets of leaflets, and then there is a terminal leaflet at the end. Yes, these are a bit dry, so the edges are curling inwards. So I'll show you another one a bit more close up. Here you go, these ones are a bit more fresh, a bit more moisturised. So what you want to look for is this formation with the terminal leaflet, and also check the edges. They are serrated, quite finely serrated, and the surface of these is something between matte and a slight sheen. So the drier ones are obviously looking more matte, but they're not an overly shiny leaf, they just have a slight sheen to them. So speaking in terms of just the berries, there are a few lookalikes that also grow in the hedgerow. There's the common dogwood, which has rounder leaves and no serrations on the edges, so that's an easy identifier that you can look for. And it does have little bundles of berries, but they are no way near as magnificent as the elderberries. They do look similar, and they are dark purple, but they are in much smaller groups. Then there's the wayfaring tree, which has more papery textured leaves. They're a little bit reminiscent of like cabbage leaves with their textured crinkles, or even like primrose leaves actually. And the berries are very tightly packed together, and they start off bright red. So when you see bunches of the berries, some of them might still be red, some of them might be black, but the bunches of berries do look quite different to the elderberry. And then there's the purging buckthorn, and these leaves look like the dogwood leaves, but they in fact have serrated edges. So they share that characteristic with the elder leaves, but the leaves themselves look a bit more like the dogwood leaves. And then the berries are a bit larger than elderberries, and they actually grow off of the twigs. They don't grow in big umbels like the elderberries do. As well as the berries, I did actually come to collect some herbs as well. So this grassland meadow is full of red clovers. I'll usually collect like a little jar's worth of red clovers every year just to keep in my medicine cabinet, and I will tell you why. Generally, red clover is known as an over-the-counter menopause supporting herb, but again, like many herbs, they do have other uses too. It's got antispasmodic properties, which is helpful with specific types of coughs, and it can also be used for skin conditions such as acne and eczema and psoriasis. But traditionally it's more known as a blood cleaner and a good lymphatic tonic. So these make a good lymphatic support tea if you combine them with cleavers, and you could even use the tea cooled down on your face as like a face cleanser. Yeah, so that's some of the main ones. I won't go on and on, you can go and read about them yourself, but the reason that I collect them is because it's one of those things that I like to have in my cupboard, because I do give things out to people sometimes. So if I get talking to any ladies hitting menopausal age, then I've got some that I can give out for them to try. And they can also help with premenstrual breast tenderness, and obviously women of any age can experience that, including myself. So I might add this into a tea blend, along with some other herbs like lemon balm or raspberry leaf, for example, which are good supportive herbs for women in their premenstrual phase. There are a couple of purplish flowers that someone might confuse for the red clover, like this one, for example. I think this is a type of knapweed, but the leaves are very different and the stalks are really long on these. And you can see here the clovers are much shorter and smaller, and they've got their 3 little leaves, or 4 if you're lucky. There is a lot of St John's wort around here as well, but it's all very dried up because of all this heat that we've been having. But if we are lucky and we get a bit more rain, then it will continue to flower for a bit longer. So there are a few similar species, but this one is Hypericum perforatum, and if you hold up the little leaves into the sunlight, you'll see the tiny little dots on the leaves, and that's why it's got that name. And this is the one most commonly used by herbalists, and it's also sold in health stores as well, and that's because it's just the species with the most research behind it. If you want to hear a bit more in depth about St John's wort, then go and watch my previous video to this one, which is called 3 Magic Herbs, because this is one of the herbs that I talked about, and I mention a bit more of like the folklore and more of its medicinal uses in a bit more detail. But just to summarise briefly, it's very good topically, so it's a good wound healer because of its antiseptic and astringent properties, and it's also anti-inflammatory as well. So people tend to make an oil with this, and then you can apply it to skin problems. So it's effective on a range of skin problems, but I've heard that it's good for eczema, and it can also be relieving for nerve pain. So people use it for sciatica as well. Has anyone else noticed how much more nature is thriving this year in general? I already mentioned about the nuts and berries, but I mean insects as well. This year I've seen a crazy amount of butterflies and bugs and beetles and all sorts of things. So despite the extremely dry spring and summer that we've been having so far, everything seems to be doing really well. I've also been seeing absolutely loads of lizards too, like out in the forest, on the heathland, and I can't recall ever seeing so many out in the forest. Like, I do see them a lot on the coastline, but I'm seeing them so much more out in the woods, which is fun. This is a very common tree of the hedgerow. It's the hazelnut tree, but I don't often have much luck getting decent nuts. What I mean is, like, usually the nuts have been eaten by something, or they're usually quite out of reach. Obviously the green ones aren't quite ripe yet, but if you wait too long, then you might miss out, so you can ripen them at home. See, look, that one's slipping out already and I haven't even done anything. This one here has got a little hole in it. See that very little neat hole there? I think that is from a nut weevil. So there are various species of rodent that will get into the nuts, but this rather small little neat hole I think is down to a bug. So the nut weevil larva will be inside and it will eat the contents of the nut and then make its way out by munching this little hole, I think. As well as all the fruits, there's actually quite a lot of nice crispy bits and bobs in the hedgerow at this time of year. That's fun. If you can confidently ID common hogweed, then the seeds are definitely worth... I'll try that again. They are definitely worth collecting because they have a wonderful and unique flavour. The flavour is obviously unique to common hogweed. I keep flicking them everywhere. But it's something along the lines of like coriander, cardamom, orangey-ish. And so they are a really good addition to like biscuits and flapjacks and liqueurs as well. You can infuse alcohol with these wonderful little seeds. You might have already seen my shorts video about nettle seeds, but if you haven't, then I'll tell you a little bit about them. So they are considered a superfood and are adaptogenic because they are very supportive for the adrenals and the endocrine system. And they're also packed with vitamins and minerals and fatty acids as well. This is how you want them, fresh and green and plump, not brown or black when they've gone a bit yucky. They don't taste of much, just a little bit nutty, but they're such an easy way of getting extra nutrients into your diet because you can just sprinkle them on anything. I quite often put them on yogurt. You need to know which is male and which is female, because the female is what produces the seeds, which is what you'll be eating, and the male is just a flower. So the male plant has little tiny round balls for flowers, and they stand pretty erect. So that's the one on the left. And then the female, which is the seed-bearing plant on the right, has these clusters of little green disc-shaped seeds, and the little clusters dangle and droop down with the weight of the seeds, obviously. That's them side by side, and you can quite clearly see the difference. But when they're a bit younger, before the seeds have developed, it's harder to tell difference. You also might already be aware that they can be quite stimulating when you eat them fresh and green like this. So I dare you to try it. Go on. I'm not going to try it because I don't need any more stimulating today. I'm stimulated enough. But yeah, you try it. Next up, of course, we have sloes, because they are quite a dominant shrub in the hedgerow, and I can't believe it, but a lot of them are ripe already, and I mean like squishy ripe, which sometimes you can wait months for. Sloes are in the plum family, so that's the Prunus genus, as well as bullace and damson, which do look rather similar to sloes. So sloes are the smallest, and then next you have bullace, which are a bit larger, and they also maintain the round shape. And then you have damson, which are a bit more oval in shape, and then they're a bit larger too. But they all taste fairly similar, and people do use them interchangeably in sloe gin. Sloe berries come from the blackthorn tree, and it's obviously called this for a reason, because it has these big, long thorns on it, and that is one of its identifying features. The bullace does have thorns as well, but not as many as the sloe. So you can actually eat them raw, but you wouldn't want to consume them like, you know, a regular fruit. Like, you wouldn't want to eat a punnet of them. But it's not harmful to just have a few or a couple. But they are very astringent, so they're very drying in the mouth, and also very bitter. So that being said, let's try one for the shits and gigs, shall we? Not bad. I've never eaten one raw, so that's the first time for everything. Don't eat the stone though. Obviously. Another common one of the hedgerows here, this is the hawthorn tree. The medicinal parts that are used are the berries, the leaves and the flowers, but obviously the flowers have already passed and the berries are almost ripe. In the herbal medicine world, it is famously known as the herb for the heart. So it can support the heart and cardiovascular system in a few different ways depending on what your body needs. So a lot of herbs can have different actions like this, and the body seems to be intelligent enough to know how to use the medicine. And yeah, hawthorn is one of these that has different actions in the body. In herbal practice, hawthorn is known for being able to reduce or even resolve arrhythmia, and it can also treat congestive heart failure and other associated conditions like angina and hypertension. But if you're interested in using hawthorn for these sorts of conditions or other herbs where serious conditions are involved, then it's best that you seek advice from a naturopath or a qualified herbalist, because obviously they're quite serious conditions and you would probably need some guidance in treating these. It's not something that you would want to embark on by yourself. I mean, some people probably do. A lot of people are self-medicating and self-treating these days because they can't afford to see all different sorts of therapists, but you know, for something that serious, then you should seek advice for sure. So I think that's a wrap for this video. Of course, there's lots more other things out here to collect, but this is just what I needed on this particular day. And I don't like to overpick things either. I only pick what I need and always make sure to leave plenty behind. It is right at the end of August, so this is the last video of the summer, which means the next one is hopefully going to be a mushroom one, providing we get a good amount of rain. So catch you at the next one.